Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Fireside Chat. Dan King here, as always. It's my pleasure to be with Patty Lawrence today. She's the founder and consulting CFO at TurboExecs. And beyond being brilliant at numbers, she's also fun. You do not run into that combination very often. So, absolute pleasure to be with you today, Patty. Welcome to the Fireside Chats.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate the invite, Dan.
Cool, cool. So, what do you want to start the audience off knowing about you?
Sure. So a little bit about my background. My parents were both entrepreneurs. My dad was a worker man. I call it worker man, but he drilled water wells for a
Hmm.
living. So he would be out there and he had a gift. He could divine. Now, if you know what divining is actually using a willow stick and having it help you find, because it'll go down. It's called a witching stick.
Hmm.
So it will help you find where the water is underground, water table, and where they should drill. So he passed in 2019, unfortunately, before the whole
Hmm.
COVID thing. But
Hmm.
he had that, and he had that gift. I could never use it. I'd go out there with the stick, and there was nothing. I had none of whatever he had. So, but it ran in his family, and that's you know. That kind of set the stage for me from an entrepreneurial journey standpoint, to kind of go back to that, because I started my career in accounting, but I went not the public accounting route. I went straight into corporate accounting. So I went into work for big companies, manufacturing, warehouse distribution companies, and spent 20 years as the finance guy, um, and typically the only female in the room, because that wasn't a big thing back in the 80s and 90s, right? That's not where women accountants went. Um, but I persevered, and yeah, there was a lot of shenanigans back in that you read about, right? It all come out
Yeah.
now. I'm like, yep, I lived that back in the 80s and 90s. But did that for 20 years, and then one company decided they were going to divorce me and said, "We're going to send you on your merry way. Thank you for your service, but we don't need you anymore." And so I was upset for about a day, 24 hours. Then I was over it, and talking with a lady friend of mine who our kids played soccer. Of course, see, yeah, that's what we do on the sidelines, right? We talk about work and kids and whatnot. And she's like, "Oh my God, Patty, you need to do what you do for small, mid-sized companies." I'm like, what? She's like, "Oh yeah, she's a CPA, but she did just controller work." I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Oh my gosh, yes." And I'm like, "Wow, okay." She goes, "As a matter of fact, I just got a call from somebody who they have inventory and all that." So she goes, "I don't do inventory, right? CPAs pretty much don't do inventory related accounting." So I was like, "Oh yeah, I totally get that, right? I worked in manufacturing. I know how to do that." And so that's where I got into, transition from the corporate world into the entrepreneurial world. So I took my big picture, big company skills and brought them down to the small and mid-sized companies who really needed it, right? They might have just a bookkeeper and that was it. And they, the owner's like, "Man, you can't keep up with me, bookkeeper," right? I have questions and I have this and I have that, and I'm going a million miles a minute, and you can't play at my level. So
Yeah.
that makes them frustrated, and because they're creating, right? They're creating a path forward for themselves. They're creating products, they're creating new services, new ways to go to market, new ways to serve a constituency or a community. It doesn't matter what it is, but there's a need, and they're going to find a way to meet that need. So I was like, I need to do that too. So that's how I started out back in 2006.
Very, very cool. So a whole bunch of insights pop up for me. One is don't hire you to drill oil wells. That's the first
No,
one.
or water wells,
Or
water,
water
oil.
wells.
I will not be. No,
Okay.
that's not my gift.
Right, right. Okay. Good to know. In
Yes.
terms of what to hire you for, I'm curious if I'm CEO of a small company and I just have a bookkeeper. Number one, do I know I need you?
Mm.
And tell me more about why I need you.
Sure. So how do you know if you need me, right? To answer that question is what kind of answers or looks are you getting from your bookkeeper? Are you getting the
Mm,
deer in the headlights when you ask your bookkeeper questions about why is this up over last year? Why is this more than it should be? Why is the why? If you're not getting answers to why, that's probably your first clue. The second clue is the reports. So if the reports aren't revealing the story behind the numbers,
mm,
then there's an issue, because in the numbers, there's always a story. There is the
mm,
story of the performance of your business. There is the story of the
mm,
operations performance of your business translated into dollars. That's what financial reports should be telling you. They're always they're always revealing the story behind the numbers, and that's what we like to say that we do. So it could be a structure problem because they're not structured properly to be able to tell that story. It could be consistency in recording the numbers because they're not being recorded consistently. So sometimes
mm,
this expense is charged to meals and entertainment. Sometimes it's charged someplace else. Sometimes it's charged to travel. Sometimes it's charged over here, and then pretty soon you don't know where anything is, right? So you have
mm,
to be able to have trust your numbers to be able to grow with confidence, right? You have to be able to confidently make decisions. But if your numbers are not telling that story, you can't really trust those numbers to be able to build off of them and make those kind of decisions.
mm. Makes me think that there are so many things when we're making those decisions as CEOs, as founders. There are so many ways in which we're not in touch with the truth. There's so many opportunities, right, for uncertainty, not
Yes.
necessarily outright falsehood, but so many opportunities for us not to see the truth, right? And the numbers
Yes.
are this super powerful. I love the way you think of them as a storytelling tool,
Yeah.
right? Um, if we're not in touch with the truth, we're not going to make the best decisions, and that's not best for all of the stakeholders in the company, our customers, our employees, right? We need to
Exactly.
honor the vital, really prioritize the truth.
Yes. Yes. That's perfectly spoken.
Hmm. So, what are the most common of all of these ways in which we don't have the right data to make the best decisions? What's the most common, in your experience, barrier to us having the truth?
I think I think the most common denominator is um, the company is growing fast
Mm-hmm.
and, let's say, outstripping the expertise of, we'll call it employee number one, because
Mm-hmm.
that's typically who you have doing your bookkeeping, right? That is kind of that first hire to bring in, because, oh my gosh, we have administrated all this kind of stuff. But yeah, we're writing checks and we're receiving payments from our customers. So we have to have somebody handling those kind of things. And how much do people owe us? And how much do we owe
Mm-hmm.
them? So that's where it all starts. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to have somebody in there doing the basic accounting. Yeah, it's bookkeeping. We like to elevate it to accounting, where because accounting really is the activity that's going to reveal that story behind the numbers. If it's just
Yeah.
bookkeeping, that's pretty much just like checkbook accounting, right? There's not really attribution to it that you can
Mm.
make sense of and start gleaning what the story is, what are those numbers trying to tell me?
Yeah, the way you put that makes me think of humility first and foremost. To know
Mhm.
that this is
Yeah,
beyond the expertise of employee number one takes a lot of introspection and awareness to sense that,
it
right?
does. It really does, and it's hard because it, founders and owners are they're very loyal, and those people that they hire are very loyal too. And one thing that's very difficult for them to do is to really wrap their head around what level of expertise do I need to support my
Mm,
business as it continues to grow, because your needs are different when you just start out. When you're just a startup and you're growing organically, let's say you don't have outside funding, you're growing it organically. um those needs are different than if you take outside funding, or you have
yes,
a faster growth company, right? You've hit something, right? You
yes,
struck oil, right? Here we go, where you struck oil, and all of a sudden you have this thing that's taking on a life of its own, which is great, but it's very, very stressful for somebody who's just
yeah,
their education or background, is at the I can keep your checkbook level, but I don't know anything about making collections calls, or what your cash runway is. I don't know what your sales forecast is. How much do how many bills do you have coming in? What are we looking at? You know that that just doesn't exist. So that level of expertise is usually kind of what I'll call it breaks,
yes,
because and it's very frustrating for the owners, because the owners are like, what, you can't do, because they're like running around hair on fire, right? Because it's grow time, right? It's like, woo, we're finally there, we made it. And
yeah,
but they don't have the visibility, right? They no longer have the visibility to the business, right?
yes, yes,
Because they're just outstripping the expertise of employee number one, who's their bookkeeper. So they typically need that, I call it that next level, right? Next level. So if they're a great employee, right, they're a great person, they're loyal, they can take direction and things like that, that next level is going to help guide them, right? It's going to give them some frameworks to, here's how, right? And operate a standard SOPs, EOPs, whatever you want to call it,
yes,
those kind of
yes.
things, to be able to help guide that person and grow. Like, you want to grow your people, right? You want them
Mm,
to level
mm,
up as your business levels up. So if they're ready, willing, and able, right? If they're that employee number one, they're really loyal, they're willing to learn, they have the wherewithal to do all of those things, let's give them a try, right? Let's give them, that honest, go to it, get to it.
yeah.
And let's try to elevate them.
So there's so much here. I love the way you connect people and emotions to the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Love the way you do that. And I think first thing that,
I
that comes
think
up for
your
me,
I think your CEOs will be going, "Oh my God, yes! Oh my God, yes!" Yeah, because there is so much emotion in the numbers,
yes,
especially when you're like this and you can't connect to them. Right? You're like, I'm trying, and it's like
yeah,
not happening.
yes, yes. A couple of things come up for me to highlight. One is, as we think about when you need someone like a Patty, well, being a first time founder comes up for me as one significant possibility because you're more likely, never having seen rapid growth before, to
Mm,
find yourself in a situation like this.
of course.
And so, first time founder, rapid growth. And another thing I hear you say is bootstrap companies have a very different emotional relationship to money than funded
Mm,
companies, right?
yes.
And
Yes.
so it
It's
makes
called
me think.
OPM, other people's money.
That's right. And when it's OPM, hiring more, hiring faster, it just seems to be easier somehow, doesn't
Of
it?
course it does.
Right? Fancy that. And so it makes me think of an interesting situation of one of our clients, who I won't disclose, but one of our
Yep.
clients grew from 7 to 30 million in revenue in a year. And first
Wow. Oh
first
my
time
goodness.
first time founder, right? And can you imagine the challenge of so many unknown unknowns, so many
So
unknown
much
unknowns?
stress. Boy, that's stressful. Doubling is stress
Hmm.
enough, but that kind of growth is like that's the hair on fire growth.
Exactly, exactly. And so when you talk about employee number one and
Mhm.
up leveling them, do you find yourself more frequently in this position of, I mean, as outsourced CFO, it's one thing for you and your team to do this financial planning in a more sophisticated way. Do you often find yourself training more than coming in and doing it? You talk about up leveling employee number one, like do you actually train them sometimes to develop that expertise so they don't need you?
There's a couple of things there I'm going to unpack for you. So
Yeah.
it depends. Of course, everything depends.
Yeah.
It depends if they have that person. And like I said, that I describe them in the perfect way, because that is the perfect kind of person that we
Yeah.
would come in and help to up level,
Yes.
right? Sometimes they have a person who kind of sees our engagement as not in abundance, not as help, right?
Yes.
You're here to take my job. I'm like, we have been called in to help up level the entire function. If you'd like to come along for the ride and be trained up and up level yourself in the process, come on board. We're here to help, right? If you're not, you may be collateral damage. You may be left behind, right?
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
train's leaving the station. If you're not on board, then you may be left behind at the station. I don't explain it quite that way, but I explain that to the owners and the CEOs that we work with. I said, look, it depends. If you think, I need your assessment and I will give you our assessment from a
Mm,
technical standpoint. Does that person have the capacity? Not only the capacity, do they have the willingness to learn, right? It's all up here. Like, are you playing the game with us, or
mm.
are you going to bat the ball away every time out of reach? I'm I'm not playing your game, right? Poop. I'm going to take my ball and go home. Well, if that's the case, you're kind of not on the team, right? Because it's
Mm.
a management team, it's an ownership team, it's a run the company team, right? And if you're not on board with that, guess what? I kind of have to break it to the owner that you're kind of not a keeper. And you hate to say that, but the real feedback is, I don't know, I don't think you can make it for the long term. You're not in it for the long haul. If you're just in it for the minute and to do something for you and not really for the company, and you're not in it to help out,
Yes.
I don't think you're not the right person, right? And again, it goes back to, what's that mindset? Are you growth mindset, or are you kind of, yeah, no, man, that's change, and I'm really not good with change. I don't like
Mm.
change. I'm like, whoa. So to your point, that $7 to $30 million change,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're not willing to be on that, and by the way, that's not a train, that's a roller coaster.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Our
That's
roller
my
coaster
experience of
ride,
it. Yeah. Yeah.
that's just a little choo-choo joyride. That person's not, they, they're not the right fit, right?
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's so interesting that you describe it as change, right? We think about
Mm.
change management. We think about all of the ways an organization can change. This isn't the first function that comes to mind, right?
No, no, not at all.
And I'm now realizing how unfortunate that is, as I hear you
Mm.
describe as I hear you describe one runaway train and roller coaster. Like
Yeah.
we need a touchstone in times of change, like a touchstone of safety in a way,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And this can be that.
Yes, I love that, because that's kind of what one of the things we do is we can come in and let's call it stabilize the function. So we can give it a stabilizing factor because we're in the been there, done that category, right? And that's why we come in with the vision that we have and the been there, done that, so that we can help guide people around the minefield, right? Oh, you know what? Here's what's going to happen or could happen if you're not paying attention. Let's look out for X, Y, and Z. Okay, maybe they won't show up, but maybe 2 out of 3 of them will, right? So let's kind of keep that in our mind and let's keep looking for those on the horizon. And when we see something poking up at the horizon, we see that, we see you, and we are preparing to deal with that, right? And we can give them that kind of insight, whereas somebody who's in their hole is not going to see over the horizon.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's brilliantly put. It's so interesting to use these metaphors of truth, seeing over the horizon, the runaway train and the roller coaster. I think this brings it to life for people pretty well.
I got them all. I'll bring them all out for you.
I love it. I think this brings it to life because part of the reason that we don't work with a company like yours, or part of the reason that we don't prioritize this function, is it's not fun most of the time, right? And you're injecting a spirit of fun and an energy into it that not only makes it understandable from an intellectual perspective how important this is, it makes it viscerally alive. I think that's so important.
Yes. And honestly, that's one of our guiding principles is like we call it the fun factor, right? We know that accounting isn't the most fun, the most sexy, all of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But we bring the energy that we have to it because we love what we do. We love to help create that transparency and create that visibility for owners and creators, CEOs, so that they have that path forward. They can see it, right? They can see what we see. They see they know the story, right? We're revealing the story behind the numbers, and based on that story, we're starting to create that. We're creating reality. We're creating a path forward with them, and we just love to have that kind of an impact, right? Because we know we impact more than just an owner, right? The impact that we help the owner create, because the owner, they own that's their company, but I call it, making the ripples in the pond. If you drop that little pebble in the pond, it radiates out, right? It ripples out. So you're impacting close in your employees, family, your family, right? As the CEO, but then outside of that ring, your clients, right? Your customers and your clients. And then outside of that, it's the community, right? So it just keeps rippling, right? And it's the client's community too, because they have a vested interest in this. So it's a financial ripple that is going to touch a lot of people. And that totally came to mind for me. And it was galvanized during the shutdowns from COVID, right? I was talking to a lot of people about what next, right? It's like, because there were a lot of people, a lot of business owners that were very freaked out. This first time, right? What do you do with a global pandemic? What do you do? How do you react to these shutdowns? Never in anybody's history, right? In the lifetimes of anybody has this ever happened. So, oh my gosh, what are we supposed to be doing? What's our next best decision?
Yes.
So the universe told me that I needed to start doing some videos. They need to hear from Patty, right? Because they're freaked out and making maybe not so good decisions because of the chatter I was seeing and hearing. It was like, whoa, no, we can't do that, right? So let's get some advice out, right? And this was before PPP and before programs and things like that. It's like, Well, holy crap, what do we do? Right? So operationally, what do we do? Cash wise, what do we do? So yeah, every day for 6 weeks, I did a 2-minute video, hung it out
Mm,
there wherever, I uploaded it on Facebook. I uploaded and I stopped on Facebook for after a while, and then LinkedIn, wherever I can get that out. And then I was asked to do panel discussions because everybody's on Zoom now, right? We've been on Zoom for a
yeah.
while. But that's one of those things is like, okay, we got to educate people. We got to educate business owners what is their next best choice, right? What is their next best decision
Mm,
during this pandemic? Because everything was changing by the hour, right? You go sleep overnight and then the next day something else was going, something else was blown up or something else, the wheel was falling off. It's like, what? So I just, yeah, the universe slapped me upside the head and said, Patty, get on video. We
yeah.
don't care what it looks like. We
Yeah.
don't care that it's not professional, because I was not a video person before COVID. I was like, oh, it
Yeah.
has to be so packaged, and you can't say and you can't do this, and it has to be rehearsed and all this kind of stuff. And boy,
Yeah.
did I got a wake up slap. It's like, nope, no more of that. You're gonna just get on, you're gonna do it in one take,
Yeah.
2 minutes long max,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get it out there so that people can have something to base a decision on, even if it's just some little thread of something, right? Give them something to work with, because everything is gloom and doom out there. I had to turn my TV off. I don't know about you, but I had to, I
Oh, it's
couldn't
horrible.
I could not consume any more bad, like bad, like that happened to me once. I was overwhelmed by it, and I said, that's it. I get 1 hour of news a day. That's it.
Mm,
One local, half-hour local, half-hour national. I'm done. I don't want to hear any more, because I need to be creating. I need to be problem
yes.
solving. I need to, and it's not just for me. It's not just for my business. It was for my clients and
Yes.
the
Yes.
community in general, right? Because there was a vacuum, right? And I say a vacuum of information that they could, there's just a bunch of people freaking out. I'm like, well, okay, look, time out. We're just gonna not do that. In Patty's world, in TurboExecs land, we're not gonna freak out. We're gonna
Yeah.
figure it
I love it all because I think number one, I mean, I know you well enough to know you're not going to be perfectly prepackaged every time. And I suspect one of the reasons your clients are attracted to you is your humanity, is your willingness to be the accountant who's going to tell the truth, who's going to show up just as you are in a down to earth, highly relatable, highly truthful way. And so prepackaged ain't that, right? I
out. No,
think I think
not at
that
all.
really suits you. So I
Exactly.
love that. And I couldn't agree more about the news and mental health. So, in our search for the truth, if fundamentally what we're doing is finding the truth in numbers, well, we got to protect our mental health. The
Yes.
news does not do that, right? It
No.
injects additional fear into a
Mm.
situation when, holy shit,
Stress.
we've never
Mm.
experienced this before.
Right.
So, right, like, I pretty much ignore the news at this point.
Yeah.
And maybe once in a while, like people around me will tell me what's going on. And I feel like I'm going to hear the things I need to hear. Do I
Mm-hmm.
need to allocate my energy? When, as you say, the
Exactly.
news creates an energy of fear. That's the opposite of the
Yeah.
energy of creation. I love the way you put that,
Yes.
right? It's the
Yes.
total opposite. And we can choose to dwell in fear. We can choose to dwell in creation. And at a time
Yep.
where it's harder to do that, like we started our business the week of the pandemic. The very week
Mm.
of the pandemic, we started this. It was about 2 years ago, almost to the
Yeah.
date now, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I was freaking out because we had done 3 months of research and the pandemic threw out the business model that the research told us to follow, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Completely threw it out. And
Right.
we wouldn't be here today if I had dwelled in that energy of fear.
Mm.
You really can choose between the two. The
Yes, you
news isn't going to
can.
help.
Mhm. I love it. I love it. You always have a choice. Always. You may
Mm-hmm.
think you don't, but you're not looking at it properly, right? You're
Yes.
not really bringing it all in and taking it all in. And once you do, you start seeing what those different choices are, what those
Yeah.
different paths forward are.
Yes, yes. So speaking of path forward, as we come towards the end of our time together, we love to end with a couple of questions. First is a
Yes.
very human question. So when you're not looking for truth in numbers, when you're not working hard, what do you do for fun?
Oh, I love to play tennis. So I play competitive
Oh,
tennis. Look
me
out.
too. How about that? Okay. I didn't know
Yes,
that. Very
yes,
cool.
yes, yes. I saw that in your bio. I was like, oh my gosh, he's a tennis player too. That's so cool.
Yes,
Yes, I
yes.
love to play. So and we always have to remember in tennis is not about who's across the net from you. It's about
Hmm.
how you play the ball coming at you. It's always about
Hmm.
how you play the ball. And the same thing in life. Same thing in life.
Hmm.
It's not about the other person. It's about what
Hmm.
you do with that little yellow ball.
So if someone wants to get started with you on the tennis court of accounting, um, what's the way for them to get started? Is there a link that they could take a look at? Is there a website they should go to? What should they do to get started?
Love that. Yeah. So, best place is to go to our website, which is TurboExecs with an S.com,
Mhm.
TurboExecs.com. And there's a link in there to sign up for our e-zine, which is twice a month. Pattyisms, the world according to Patty, great helpful things for creator CFO, CEOs. Sorry, I'm so used to saying CFO. Um, but yeah, great stuff for CEOs and entrepreneurs and business owners. Or you can find
Awesome.
me on LinkedIn too. I put a lot of my content on LinkedIn as well. Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Do it, people. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Patty. Such a pleasure to learn from you. And you, as you always do, have brought the numbers for life, certainly to me, and I think for others. So it's so appreciated.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.